Hello, I'm Julie Quine, a director of the Manx charity, the Archibald Knox Forum. This is the fourth in the series of 6 films, titled All Saints Church Lonan, with 2 Knox war memorials, a Knox-designed pavement, and the grave of Canon John Quine. The story of this church, and the subject of the talk, is intrinsically bound up with the lives of Archibald Knox and John Quine, as shown in their youth on screen. I've drawn on my research of documents from Quine family sources, the iMuseum newspaper archives, and the Manx Museum's archives, including many letters which John Quine wrote to his son, Dono, from 1906 onwards. The 2 men probably met around 1885 or 86 through both being members of the Isle of Man Natural History and Antiquarian Society, and both being strongly spiritual. They also met at Old St Matthew's Church, where John Quine was an occasional preacher and Knox was a side person. John Quine had been appointed the new headmaster of the Douglas Grammar School for Boys in April 1884, and the friendship between the 2 men developed further when John appointed Archibald Knox as the drawing master at the school in 1892. On screen is a photo of All Saints Church Lonan, dated 1895, the same year that John Quine became the vicar of the church, holding the position there until his death in 1940. The church is situated in Lonan, in a rural location around 6 miles north of Douglas. In 1914, John Quine was refurbishing All Saints Church, and his letter to his son, dated the 24th of December 1914, gives a detailed description and sketch of the pavement as shown, which was clearly designed by Knox. The finished pavement design remains intact in the church, as shown on screen. To quote from the letter, "With the exception of a design given me by A. Knox for pavement, all the rest is my own. Knox's design is to treat a square of pavement, 5 stones, the centre red, others blue-grey, a red line on each side up the aisle, and a red lining round each square, marking repetition of pattern with relation to the red centre." After World War I, Canon John Quine asked Knox to design a war memorial for the 41 men of Lonan and Laxey who lost their lives in the Great Conflict. The memorial, as shown, is mounted on the inside of the north wall of the church. The marble memorial portrays a Viking galley set on a hatchment, the emblem of mourning, and the ancient Manx sword of state lies in a horizontal position, denoting the fallen. It is enamelled in steel, the hilt in coral red, and the guard and pommel bear the 3 legs of man. John Quine was chaplain to the House of Keys at the time, and no doubt had a hand in the design. Getting permission to use the image of the sword in the design proved somewhat difficult. The memorial was unveiled in 1921 during a church service, attended by over 300 people. Some months later, a much larger, unique marble tablet was unveiled on the west wall of the church, as shown. This is a roll of honour for the 250 Lonan and Laxey men who fought in and survived the war, including the names of John Quine's 3 sons. The memorial was again designed by Knox, and the Manx sword of state is shown in an upright position, as you can see. The simplicity of the memorial gains respect. The 2 friends also shared interests in the Manx, Celtic and runic crosses. John Quine was probably the main influence for Knox to study these in detail, and Knox was to draw on their designs in his own design work, although with his own ideas of ornamentation. Both men were deeply interested in antiquarian matters, and their names appear in many of the Antiquarian Society's minutes. They were particularly keen to see the Cathedral of St. German on St. Patrick's Isle in Peel restored to its former glory and reconsecrated as the island's cathedral. For further information on this and images of the communion pieces designed by Knox, please see the second film in the series. They also discovered a number of ancient inscribed stones throughout the island. Examples can be seen in the grounds of Lonan All Saints Church, as the one shown on screen. The stones were independently attributed to Phoenician traders and formed a new group in British archaeology. Canon John Quine officiated at Knox's funeral in 1933, giving the last solemn rites at Braddon Cemetery, and he made touching reference to the life and character of Knox, who, he said, had been a personal friend of his for 47 years. On the screen are photographs of Canon John Quine's grave, headstone, and surrounding curbs. The first image shows the grave's position relative to the church. The second and third show the grave plot and headstone in its entirety, as it appeared in the 1940s and as it appears now. The fourth shows a close-up of the detailed design of the cross and gives the dates and positions held by Canon Quine throughout his life. He was born on May the 5th, 1857, and died on February the 29th, 1940. He was Vicar of Lonan from 1895 to 1940, Canon of St. German from 1909 to 1940, and Chaplain of the House of Keys from 1906 to 1924. Family members of Canon Quine believe that Knox personally drew the design for Quine's grave directly onto the massive slate, and that it was unfinished when Knox died. However, this has been disputed, and in particular Annie Knox, Archibald Knox's younger sister, claimed it was actually John Quine's own design. It is probably fitting to say that both men had a hand in the design, and the result is very impressive, a very impressive headstone to a faithful servant of God. The curbing at the front of the grave has also given rise to some different views. However, I unearthed a letter from Frank Sheriff, an executor of Canon Quine's estate, which reveals that on visiting the grave plot in 1941, he found that it was still unmarked and quite overgrown, and arranged for it to be cleared and the headstone erected. John's widow, Mary, approved Frank's proposal for the inscriptions on the headstone and on the curve of the plot, on which is engraved, "Donor and designer of the stone, A. Knox, a lifelong friend." The blue slate stone is believed to have come originally from a brewery in Spring Valley, Braddon, in the early 1930s. Both headstone and curb were engraved by Thomas Quayle around 1941. The conclusion of this talk is to state the hope that Lonan All Saints Church, which has been closed for approximately 5 years, as at August 2020, will be saved. It is envisaged that the pavement and 2 war memorials will be on display once the church has been taken over by a Manx charity. Negotiations are still ongoing between the charity and the church authorities as at August 2020, and it is hoped that the wonderful work of both Archibald Knox and Canon John Quine will remain on display for all who wish to see it for many years to come. For more information on Canon John Quine, please visit the Facebook page, John Quine Forum, and for more on the association between the two men, read John's life story, Manx Patriot, available from Amazon.